Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Queering and Soothing webinar for this evening. Warm welcome to all of you. I am Steph. I'm the project manager of the Employability and Upskilling and the Arts and Heritage projects at Blossom LGBT. I use the he, him pronouns. So today we're gonna be talking about queering and soothing, not me, Bima. Navigating the world as a queer person comes with unique challenges, whether it's facing rejection, whether it's misgendering, feeling the pressure to hide our queerness in professional spaces, etc. At the same time, relationships with ourselves and others can feel impacted by these experiences. So, our host today, Bima Loxley, will be addressing all of that, and they will introduce themselves in a moment, and they will share some self-soothing techniques and how to embrace our authenticity while prioritizing self-care and safety, how to build self-compassion and letting go of judgment, including self-judgment, and strengthening our connections with ourselves, with our relationships, and the queer community. I will have a QR code at the bottom of the screen for your questions. You can choose to remain anonymous if you'd like, and you can leave your name as well. And please, Bima, over to you.
Hello, thanks for having me. So essentially, I'm going to take you through a presentation of how we can queer up our lives a little bit more and also soothe ourselves in that process. Because as you probably know, if you're queer here, that being queer doesn't always come with rainbows and butterflies. It actually can be quite anxiety-inducing, even traumatic. And so I want to be able to give you skills to learn how to ground yourself when feeling this way, that maybe you can take to your loved ones as well. So I do need my slides up, please, Steph. Thank you. So my name's Bima Loxley and my pronouns are they, them. I am trans non-binary. And I'm a queer, psychosexual and relationship therapist. I also do sex education online on Instagram, although Instagram is becoming a less and less safe space for queer folks. So I'm not sure how long I'll be on there, but I still am there and the community is still there. Right, so what we'll be learning today, this is for work and employability and upskilling, but this can also be placed in your personal lives as well. And actually, I think the two can merge, and you might find this actually might work more in your personal lives than work. It depends on you. So we'll be learning the realities of being queer. I'll dive in straight with self-soothing and compassion tips for yourselves. We'll be looking at how to embrace your queerness and your authentic self, which I think is really important. And then on relationships, how to build connection with others. And that can be anyone. And then when we think of relationships, we might think romantic or loving partnerships, but this can also be, friends, family, peers, colleagues, whoever you want to connect to, your pets. And at the end, just because I'm a sex and relationship therapist, and if anyone's interested, I'll just describe a little bit about what it is to be a therapist and what sex and relationship therapy is, because there's often a lot of myths that go along with that. So I'd like to bust them. Also, I should let you know that there's probably about a 20-second lag. So when I come to the Q&A slides, don't worry if you think I'm frozen and waiting for your questions, but I would really encourage your questions. Like, I'm a therapist, but I'm also human. I'm a queer human. So if you want to ask anything, please do. This is why you're here and why I'm here, is to help you in any way beyond what I'm already putting in these slides. So also just to let you know that when I uploaded the slideshow, the emojis were removed. So there aren't any beautiful butterflies and rainbows on here, I'm afraid, but just imagine them, just imagine the color. So the queer realities, right? I'm going to start with a positive because I think often we don't. Your queerness is beautiful. My queerness, your queerness, random strangers' queerness, it's amazing and it's brilliant no matter what. And it's really important that we remember that and thrive in the euphoria that queerness can bring, because it's real. However, obviously, as I said earlier, it can come with a lot of pain and hurt, loneliness, and even danger, especially over across the pond in the USA. It's really scary times what's happening with us. The thing about the pain is that it can be external. So rejection for a job application, people misgendering you in the workplace, feeling lost in a system that doesn't understand you or respect you, or understand queerness. However, we can also be our worst enemies, given that we've grown up in a society that is often queer, homophobic, transphobic. We can internalize those thoughts. So we might be faced with our own internalized transphobia, queerphobia, homophobia, biphobia, internalized sexism or misogyny, you name it. We'll be our own personal bullies at points, and maybe more so than people out in the world, because we often are worst critics. And that's okay, right? That's really, really normal. And we shouldn't feel shame for having this internalized type of phobia in us. You know, I have it at times, and the people that I work with do. And it's just about working with that and understanding it and saying, do you know what? I don't want that in me anymore. Like, I can't be my worst enemy, especially when really the world is out to get us right now. So, any questions around this, or does anyone want to mention any struggles that they're having about their queer reality? Any joys? Anyone just want to throw emoji in the comments and just tell me how beautiful it is to be queer? And even if you don't need a response from what I'm saying, from anything that you say, sometimes it's nice to just vent and just put something out there into the world. So I'm just going to give you maybe 30 seconds to think about if you want to say anything. And it can be anonymous, obviously, because taking care of yourselves matter. Obviously, don't feel bad if you say anything or nothing at all.
I just want to say that someone posted an anonymous comment that thank you for saying that internalized queerphobia is okay because they feel the same and they felt the shame of it as well.
Yeah.
Well, you know, they're getting over that. That's what the comment said. It's an anonymous comment that came through.
Brilliant. Well, I love that. I love that you're getting over it. And shame is tricky. Shame is so ingrained. You know, I call it a childhood wound. It's like our inner child screaming out to us, saying something's wrong with us. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And hopefully over these slides, you'll learn that and learn how to sort of put that in your life so the shame goes away, because it doesn't belong. Okay. So diving into self-soothing and compassion, you might be asking, what is self-soothing or compassion? So to self-soothe, I would say would be to ground yourself. So when we're feeling anxious, stressed, scared, you know, anything that is basically heightening our nervous system, that's making us feel a bit shaky, our heart's beating, we're sweating, we want to like run away, we want to fight, we may even freeze, or we may even end up fawning and people pleasing. Self-soothing can help us step out of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, complete the stress cycle, and come back to our grounded, what we would call our regular selves. The stress cycle will happen when something triggers you. So maybe it's a queerphobic comment, or you're stepping out into the world and you're not quite sure like who's going to be there and who's going to see you or harm you. And then we get stressed, or something else inside of us, and we're feeling out of control. And it is an out of control response. We cannot control it. It's the back of our brain, our amygdala, setting off alarm systems saying, hey, you're in danger. To complete the cycle is to step out of this danger mode and come back into a line of safety where we can essentially tell ourselves, actually, we're okay, we're alive, we're safe, and so therefore we can breathe again. Compassion, for example, would be treating yourself, body and mind, the whole of you, it's all connected, kindly, as if you would a loved one. Compassion is also about like empathizing with your own pain and wanting to help yourself. That's what self-compassion is. If you're compassionate to someone else and they're in pain, you might see their pain, you might understand it, empathize with it, and you really want to help them. And so it's about putting that inwards, because that's the thing that we don't tend often to do as humans, especially in a very like individualist society, capitalist, consumerist society, where everyone's trying to do the best for themselves and individuals and help everyone else and get to the top. We never look inwards. So this is about saying, actually, we're allowed to look inwards. We're allowed to be a little bit selfish and take care of ourselves. So how to self-soothe? The list here is basically a kind of non-exhaustive list of what you can do. The whole point really is to slow down and find something that makes you feel more calm or calmer than you were. So nature is a really big one. And obviously we don't all have access to nature, but even if it's a plant in your house, or just watching the trees blow outside, or just touching the dirt, or I wouldn't say concrete, but if that's all you've got, go outside and just breathe. Breathing is so important because it's just a reminder that you're alive and that you're okay. And if you're breathing really heavily, it's saying, can you slow that down? Can you slow and take control of your breath? And you do a shorter intake, so 4 breaths in, 8 breath counts out. Does that make sense? 4 counts in, 8 counts out. The longer your breath is out, that's going to calm your nervous system. And that's science-backed. Connecting to others if you can, hugging people, kissing people, just dancing with people, anything that you can do, telling them about your day. That's a really, really good way to give ourselves the really good hormones of connecting and calming. If you want to cry, you want to cry. If you want to laugh, you want to laugh. If you want to fake laugh and laugh till you do really laugh and it hurts, do that. Like, all of these things can really, really help. Movement is another great one. So let's say you feel a bit frozen. So you've got to work, someone's just said something. It's like, okay, can I get up and leave the room? Like, can I feasibly do that? Or can I just like really tighten my hands and then controllingly loosen them? And like that kind of intentionality and of squeezing harder than maybe your body would want, and then releasing, just shows that you have control of your grip and what you're doing. Stretching, so just your neck, stretching your pelvic floor if you even want, because if you're tense here, you're tense all the way down. And then affirmations could be a really good one. So if you have some set phrases for yourself, that I'm okay, I'm here, I am safe. If you're not safe, just say that I can find safety, or just tell yourself, this is really hard and this is sucky and I want to get out of this situation, but I am okay and I'm worthy and I'm queer enough and I'm not too much. And anything that you would want to hear from someone else that you can tell yourself, that's really great. Posture is also a really good one. And if you're in the workplace, it's also great, because if you look tall and you sit up tall and you put your chin up and your chest out and you smile, even if you don't want to smile, this tells your body that you're okay. If you're slouched and you're grouched and you're feeling really small, then your body might actually think, okay, something's wrong. I feel small, so therefore I'm going to be small and feel even smaller. It's weird how the body works, but we can tell it signals and it will learn and it will boost us up. And sometimes we have to fake it till we make it. The other thing, the butterfly hug, you may not have heard of it. Essentially, I'll just do a really quick sort of explanation of what the butterfly hug is, and then you can go away and do it. But if you have your 2 hands in front of you, cross them over, so you're creating essentially a butterfly. If you can put your hands on your chest, but your fingers on your collarbones, don't wear a really huge dressing gown like me. And if you want to do it right now with me, and you can shut your eyes or you can keep a soft gaze anywhere. I just want you to breathe in slowly and start tapping your collarbones. And I want you to tap slowly, slower than you might think, and hard, not too hard, obviously, but hard enough so that you can hear the echo and feel the echo in your body. This taps into your vagus nerve system. It's calming. It's telling your right and your left side of the body that you are here, you are safe, and you are okay. It's wonderful what science does. It feels and looks woo-woo, but it's scientifically backed. And if you can just do this and breathe and maybe imagine the sun on your face or your toes in the sand or grass, and find a safe space, even if it's like on the loo at work. This can really help. For some, it doesn't. That's okay. Everybody's different. But if this is something that can help you self-soothe in the moment, I urge you to try it. And now we're going to go on to self-compassion. When people talk about feeling negative about themselves, treating themselves negatively, sort of a critical voice, people always think, okay, let's go to positivity. And I don't always like the idea of toxic positivity, that we can always do this, we can talk our way out of things. Like if we try our hardest, we'll get there. That's not always true. So I really like to start with neutrality with how we are. So if you're feeling bad about how you look, instead of saying, you know, I look crap today, you're not going to say, oh, great, I look beautiful, I look wonderful, amazing. Like that won't land. If you don't believe it, it's not going to land. So don't bother. So maybe just try something more neutral. Like, okay, I have 2 legs. If you have 2 legs today, my hands are looking like hands. That's okay. I have 8 fingers and 2 thumbs, and there's wrinkles over them, and I've got tattoos on my hands, and I have rings. Like, just notice who you are and what you're doing, rather than talking about yourself negatively about yourself, or even positively about yourself. If you can tap into neutrality and just say, you know, queerness is allowed, nature is queer. I don't know if queerness is beautiful for me, but it certainly is for others. You know, anything that you want to think, and you can Google it or ask your friends, ask your family, ask your loved ones, hey, if you could say something nice and compassionate to me, what would it be? And if it's too much, then maybe just try and turn it into neutrality. And these examples down here are just other examples of what that might look like. The Joy Diamond, it's in the book Queer Up by Alexis Court, which I would just really recommend anyway as a book to read. Just talks about the hormones in our body. So serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, that we would call like our happy hormones, the hormones that we want to have inside of us to feel authentic and calm, maybe even joyful and connected. And when we're in our stress cycle, then we get cortisol and stress. And so the Joy Diamond, if you can zoom in, and if you want it, I can sort of take a picture of it and give it to you, or you can have these slides. It shows you more options of what you can do to bring out happy hormones rather than the stressful hormones. So hopefully all of these techniques can give you sort of somewhere to start into how to regulate your nervous system, how to feel more grounded, and be able to go about your day without feeling so panicked and stressed and unable. Okay, I know there's a lag, but do you have any questions? Do you need another demonstration of a self-soothing technique? Do you want to tell me anything? Did anything not make sense? Do you want to just make a comment that has nothing to do with this? Let me know. I shall wait and drink my water, which you should also be doing.
We've got a question. What is the face tapping technique?
Which one? Sorry?
Face tapping technique.
Face tapping.
Yeah, that's the question.
Oh, I'm just looking if I wrote that down. Oh, I know. Okay, so this isn't something that I do or am trained in, but I know that there is a way. So tapping is kind of like the butterfly hug, right? You're tapping a part of your body. Some people tap their pressure points. Some people tap their pressure points on their face. Don't listen to me when I do it. I'm actually not trained in tapping in that way. So if you're interested in face tapping and the pressure points in your body and how you can soothe, I would just Google it, YouTube it, and see what you can learn. Maybe learn the history of it as well. You know, it's probably not westernized. It's probably coming from like indigenous folk or people of culture, rather than like doctors and psychiatrists and therapists who have sort of taken therapy and made it very medicalized and individualized. So I would learn the history of it if you're interested as well as the technique. Any other questions?
There is another question, yes. Someone asked, when people say happiness is a choice, it makes me angry. I don't want to be unhappy, but I hate the concept of capitalizing on happiness, like family, house, good job, etc.
Mhm.
I obviously want to be happy, and I know what doesn't make me happy, the things that what I just mentioned. But I'm finding it frustrating that I don't know what makes me happy. I'm stuck in a loop. What do I do?
Oh, that's such a big question. It's a good question as well. And that's often where we have to start sometimes, is when we don't know what brings us joy or makes us happy. You know, if think about sex therapy, what turns us on, right? Like, it is good to start with what you don't know, as in what you don't, what I can't talk, what doesn't make you feel this way. So have you written that down? Have you written it down and gotten really clear with really what doesn't make you happy? And my question is, do you really know? Do you really not know what does make, sorry, all these double negatives. Do you really not know what makes you happy? Like 100%. I'm wondering if there's something really small. Because if you're talking about like, yeah, capitalism of how happiness is that we have to be in a relationship, then have children and buy a house and have a white picket fence around that house, and then have a 401k pension and then be able to die happy together, all of that, like, it's wild. That's quite big stuff. Whereas happiness can come from like the most mundane, tiniest thing that everyone else might think that wouldn't or shouldn't make you happy. So are you judging the things that are making you happy? I would also say, yeah, we shouldn't be thriving for happiness as individuals. We should be thriving for full capacity of all the emotions. You know, on the spectrum of emotions, none of them are good or bad. They're just different. And so we should be tapping into anger and grief as well as joy and happiness and giddiness and excitability. So I'm thinking you're on the right lines of questioning happiness, and that we can't like choose it. No, but what can you choose to maybe step into a more happy life? And maybe we'll get into that when it comes to connecting to others. But I think about hobbies, work, animals, nature, random things that people just wouldn't think of. Sorry, I can't be more help because it's quite a big question. So maybe it's about going to therapy as well. Does that help? Talking to people about how you feel and where that sadness comes from and what's stopping your happiness. And if it's not you, who is it? Anyway, I'm going to stop waffling about that one. Shall I move on to the other slide?
Yes, there's no more questions for now.
Great. Thank you for the question. It's really important. Okay. Embracing your queer. I embrace my queer, as you can probably tell. However, I don't always. And I think that's okay, right? Because ultimately, your safety is key. And so this is my house. I, of course, embrace my queerness because I am safe in my space and I'm safe with my partner. If you go out the door and you find that there are people who are unsafe, if you're at a place of work where you know that there's no EDI program, they don't recognize queerness at all, then yeah, it's going to feel unsafe to embrace your queer. So going back to the reality slide, it's saying we need to be aware of what the risks are. And we have to kind of acknowledge them. I don't think we can ignore them. You know, like the toxic positivity model would be, oh, it's okay, you can just get through it. But no, we can't, and we can't always. And I think sometimes it's about accepting that life is unfair and life around queerness is really unfair, and it's a really hard thing to accept. But then our expectations are really set up so that we can work with it instead of against ourselves. So first of all, know your rights. Do you know your rights as a queer person? I might add, do you know your history as a queer person? You know, if you're a lesbian, what's lesbian history? If you're trans, what's the trans history? What's the Black trans history? But there are things that you can go to on the government website, the Equality Act and the Gender Recognition Act. And if you look for EDI programs, so that's equity, diversity, inclusion programs that should be hopefully included in your workspace, that should set you up with your rights. If you're really struggling with your rights, I know that Gov, if you go on the Gov website, you can get free legal service. just to ask advice. So you can call up lawyers and you can say, hey, I found this on the Equality Act. This doesn't happen at work. What do you suggest I do? And maybe it's going to your HR. But again, some people feel like they can't even go to HR, or maybe there's no HR. So it's really, really sticky. So just know your rights, know how you can go about the world legally. And if you can start working on your self-soothing and your compassion and starting to accept yourself, and we can go on to how to do that next as well, maybe starting to learn and like parts of you, maybe then you can start embracing your queerness, because you have to like your queerness before you can embrace it, right? If we've got that internalized transphobia or misogyny in you, then you're not going to like that part of yourself. So why on earth would you accept it, then embrace it? So do we have to look in the mirror and start really seeing who we are? And maybe there are parts of ourselves that we don't like, and maybe that's okay, right? We don't have to like all the parts of ourselves, but we can be compassionate and not be unkind, at least, to those parts of ourselves. Then I would start small, right? This isn't all or nothing. You know, you don't have to embrace all your queerness. As I say, like, we might not like parts of ourselves, and that's really okay. And I would check, is it that you don't like this part of yourself because you don't like this part of yourself? Or is it because society is saying that you shouldn't like this part of yourself? Challenge the voice, you know, because if society is coming into your head rent free, I would challenge it. And maybe let's just start with one thing that you like and start there. Something that you appreciate, something that you're proud of. Baby steps always in everything, right? You know, if you go into the gym, I've said this analogy to one person and they completely just throw it away. But if you go to the gym, you're not just going to suddenly lift 50 kilos, are you? Especially if you've never been to the gym before. You're going to start small. So the same with any sort of hobby or exercise routine. When it comes to compassion and embracing your queerness, just start small, baby steps. Just be proud that the fact that you even want to start, that's okay. Because again, we have so much against us. So if you just want to breathe in, if you want to do this with me again, nice deep breath. Belly breath, let the breath go all the way down into your pelvic floor. Maybe you just want to shut your eyes and think about something that brings you joy, or like a glimmer of happiness. And maybe it doesn't make you happy, but it makes you feel something, makes you think about something, makes you want to smile, makes you feel a little bit warm. Maybe it just makes you feel a little bit more grounded. How does your body feel, right? Remember, mind and body is connected. So I really want you to think about, how does your body feel, and how do you feel up here as well? They're kind of two things. One is a sensation, so like a heavy heartbeat or a feeling in your chest or tingly toes, and then how you feel is the translation, the word to that as well. That feeling, when you're thinking about queer joy, is authenticity. So I want you to note that feeling that you've just noticed in your body. It could be that you feel nothing at all and it feels really light. That's your authenticity. And it might take a few times to practice that and feel it, but I would really check in what feels authentic to me. And then when you're exploring your queerness, or you're just going about in the world, or you know, you're having a conversation with someone and you want to be true to yourself, check in with that feeling. Is that feeling there? If it doesn't feel authentic, it might feel quite anxiety inducing. You might feel like you're in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's not authentic. I mean, it's true to you as well, like it's a reaction, but it's not your authentic self. So to recognize maybe a calm state versus a nervous state might allow you then to be able to step more into this kind of calm state that feels authentic to you. And when I say authentic queerness, I mean, you know, doing your hair how you want to do, dress how you want to dress, speak how you want to speak, take the hormones that you want to take, you know, follow that, and, you know, talk to others about it too. The other thing about embracing your queer is in finding others like you. So community, if you're appreciating them, can you mirror that and put that back on yourself? Because you are just as wonderful as other queer people. And I bet you have so many people, or at least one person, queer person, that you admire. So it's like, why aren't you admiring yourself? Why are you different to them? Why are they better than you? They're probably not, right? Who can we judge as humans? We're all just humans on this planet. So yeah, any questions? Oh, someone just said they use the same gym analogy too. That's great. I had someone tell me, they were like, oh no, I would just lift you 50 kilos. I was like, okay, you might injure yourself, but fair enough.
That's funny. I use the same gym analogy, but I usually use 100 kilos.
Yeah, I don't know what number to pick.
At the moment, yes. No more questions. Just that comment that you saw, actually. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Should we wait 10 seconds or?
We can, just because of the delay. But you can go on, and if the question comes in, I'll
Yeah,
ask it later. Yeah.
perfect. You can do that. Yeah. Okie dokie. We're near to the end of the slides. Building connections. So as I said, grounding self-soothing technique is to connect with other people. And because, you know, especially in that post-COVID, we're all online, it can be super isolating being queer, especially if you live in the middle of nowhere or if you live in London. I live in London and I have so many people I work with live in London and they still feel really isolated, really lonely because it's such a big place. It's almost too big. So building connections can be really difficult. And take it from me, I am autistic and socially anxious. And so I find it really hard to connect with others. And for so long, I thought connecting with others meant to be connecting with a massive group, having to go out all the time, drinking. Like, that's what I thought connecting with others meant. And I thought I had to do that because everyone else was doing that. God, I was wrong. And I'm so glad I'm actually an adult now and have realized that's not what I need to do. I find connection with just one person, and that's really great. So all it takes is just one person. And if it is online and you prefer online and you prefer even anonymous, and that just makes you feel connected to another being, then so be it. That's great. Like, do what is good for you, right? Don't go by what everyone else is saying. Find someone who understands you as well, right? Like, who really, truly gets you and you don't feel judged by. You don't feel like you have to explain things, or maybe they don't misgender you and that hurts. So if you can find someone like that, that'd be amazing. And yeah, it might take some time to find. Finding true connection is really hard, and authentic connection. But then it can be really easy for other people. So if that's you, also great. But like, we're all just different. So the other thing is, maybe here you can create a community. If it's like you leave something in the comments or you find a way to connect through the charity afterwards, I would try doing that. Find someone also who you have the same queerness as, and obviously queerness is so fluid and flexible, and it's just a universe of messiness. So not everyone's going to be exactly the same as you, but if someone can be in the sort of ballpark of your gender queerness or your sexuality or your relationship style, then find someone who can at least align with that. Because you might find that in a queer community there are hierarchies, or people won't understand you. I find that a trans community is often safer for me than maybe a wider spread sexual orientation community. And that's just me, right? So everyone's different. But trust me when I say it, queer folk are looking for you too. We all are looking for more connection in this world, especially now, especially people across the pond. If you can reach out to anyone that you know or random strangers on Instagram or YouTube or online who live in the US and want to reach out to them and just offer them solace, an ear, and they can hear you back, then that would be amazing. So yeah, find communities, group therapies. I actually do run a therapy group for trans and non-binary folk. The group is closed, but I'm intending on running another one. So if you're interested in joining a group like that, hit me up. I'm sure my details will be here after the slideshow. Meetup app is a really great one. It's not all about queerness, but it could be just about your hobbies. Social media, of course, other hobbies in person or online. Your local library. Often your local library often has a lot going on, especially if they're a queer library, and there are quite a few in London and Scotland and everywhere you go. Queer spaces or just diversity spaces. Work. Can you ask or can you create a community at work for queerness? Can you be the one who runs that, or could you ask your boss or your manager, hey, do you think the company could create that for us? If you're still in school, you know, there are so many ways to connect with others through different club ways. Charities just like this one, you know, and yeah, you might have to step a bit out of your comfort zone and travel a bit, but is connecting worth it to you? And are you able to do that? I would always stick to online personally, because that's just how I live in the world, but everyone's very different. So if you want to put your handles in the chat because you want others to just reach out and maybe just say hi, or just know that there's someone else, you can do that. If you don't, that's really okay as well. Anonymity is fine. but I'm sure Blossom can take note of this if you wanted to, and maybe Blossom can make other ways of connecting. And also, I have an Instagram page, Loxley Sexology, just my surname in sexology, and there's always community there as well. Like if you just check out who follows me, most people are queer and affirming, so there's ways to find people. Anything that's come through?
Yep, I think it's just a comment. I'm not sure it's a question. Someone said, I'm terrified of going out of my comfort zone, but I know it's the way to meet new people. I think it's just a comment, maybe.
Yeah.
An answer? I don't know.
I wonder if I have an answer to that long question. Sometimes giving unsolicited advice is not what people want. However, I will give validation in that, yes, of course, like I completely hear you. It's so frustrating that going out of your comfort zone might be the thing that you have to do, and that kind of makes it worse, and then you have no motivation for it. So I would say, well, what's in your comfort zone? Like, yes, everything that I'm saying might take you out of it, but maybe there are things that really do feel comfortable for you, and are there ways to connect within that? Unless you just like living like under a hill with no internet connection and it's just you and the animals, I don't know how I help you there, but I really hear you in that, and I think other people will definitely hear you in that, and saying, okay, if you think that people will understand you in this, maybe there's someone out there who will also understand.
No more questions or comments at this point.
Okay, right, we're just going to end then on, if people are interested, what sex and relationship therapy is. So what is it? What do I do in my job? Why do I love it? So it's talking only, which means I am clothed and so are my clients, and we talk only. There is no touch. I mean, I work only online anyway, but even if you're in person, there would be no touch. If your therapist wants to touch you, I would question their ethics. I would look at why they're doing that, and are they associated to an accreditation body that allows that? And if not, yeah, watch out. They do touch, like, say, in America, in California and stuff like that, and the rules are very different, and therapy is not regulated in the UK, which is also another concerning thing, is that anyone can call themselves a therapist. So you really have to watch out on, like, where they studied, where they're registered and accredited, and is it all legitimate, and can you find their name on a legitimate therapy website, counseling website. Oh, I had an emoji here. It's not all, I did the wet emoji. So it's not all about ooey gooey, delicious, sexy stuff. It's not all about talking about like orgasms and you know, the things that you might think of when you think of the word sex. It's actually quite, it's really interesting, but like mundane. When we're talking about sex, we're talking about sex in like quite an educational, therapeutic. Yes, people might feel shame when they think about it and talk about it. That's obviously going to be the case, but it's not like I'm just encouraging you to like come 5 times a day, and you know, that's not what sex therapy is about. It's more about helping people feel okay in themselves and their bodies. If they have a particular struggle, then we work on that and see if we can help them get through that struggle, and I'll go through those struggles on the next slide. But sex therapy is basically therapy. Relationship therapy is therapy. So when people come to me, you're getting therapy. It's just that the topic roundabout will be sex and relationships. And relationships means not just relationships with other people, but relationship with yourself as well. And I might not talk so much about anxiety and depression, for example, because that's not my forte. However, you can talk to me about that, because you are a whole human. And so I would not expect you to just bring half of yourself. I would expect you to bring all of yourself when talking about what you need and what you're struggling with. I work with individuals, couples, multiple partnered relationships, families, and groups. I'm trained in all. Yes, I set homework, or I call it home play, depending on what it is that they're doing. Been talking too much. So sex therapy often is quite educational as well. Like there's sex education involved, because when we're not taught education at school, then I need to be able to go back and say, hey, this is the anatomy. So like I have a vulva puppet, and so I might get this out sometimes and say, look, this is the clitoris, this is the clitoral hood, this is the urethra and the vaginal entrance, and yes, there's a hole in it, and I can put my hand all the way through, and this is the labia, and this is all normal in every shape and size. So I might be doing that kind of stuff in therapy, as well as in relationship therapy. If I've got two people in front of me, I might be observing their patterns or how they relate, or seeing where they're struggling in their communication. I would then relay that, and I obviously don't advise them, but I certainly say, do you want my perspective, or do you want to see what I'm seeing that you're not seeing? And usually it works. Sex therapy, specifically where I was trained in, did have GSRD attached to it, which is gender, sexuality, and relationship diversity. It's another way of saying queer or LGBTQ, but it involves polyamory and kink as well. And I think if you're a queer person and you're wanting sex or relationship therapy or any other kind of therapy, check with if they are fully trained in GSRD, because I think people actually need to be trained in this to be able to, one, work with, but also understand the differences that queer folk go through and like diverse folk go through. And yeah, as I said earlier, it is real therapy. Like it's not just about sex and getting it on and doing weird stuff. I can't even say the stuff that one might be thinking, because I don't believe it or understand what people would be thinking, apart from the job that I do. But the space I create, and I would hope everyone else would create, is shame-free, judgment-free. It's an open container for you to talk about anything that you want to talk about. Nothing has shocked me so far, and I don't anticipate that things will shock me. And also, there's no shame in wanting therapy. Like, you're not broken if you need therapy. Your relationship isn't broken if you need therapy. Some people just come in for checking if their relationship's okay. That's really okay. And if therapy is a thing that's going to help you, and there's nothing else that you can get to sort of help you in your struggles, then you should go get it. And because I'm running out of breath and my throat is drying up, these are just some examples of what I work with. And of course, the next slide will say, do you have any questions? So if you have any questions about this, you can ask away. Or comments or curiosities.
No questions coming in.
Okay.
For now. I think people have asked the questions that they wanted to ask, but I'm just double checking, going through all of our channels.
Yeah. I would encourage questions. I mean, how often do you get to talk to a sex relationship therapist? I'm not going to give you therapy, but if you have any itching urges, let me know.
Let's give it a minute just because of the delay.
Yeah. Or any questions about just the whole slides show in general?
Okay, let's see. There might be something coming in. Hold on. I was right. I think someone is asking, what are some effective ways to rebuild intimacy after a rough patch in a relationship?
Okay. When I hear intimacy, I'm thinking a really widespread way of how you can connect with your partner that is not just involving sex or genitals. So if there's a tough, rough patch, I'm going to imagine that maybe sex has been off the table because of that rough patch. Some people actually, rough patches make them want to have more sex, and that's okay. But if sex is kind of feeling like way too far, like inaccessible to you, I would take sex off the table officially. You and your partner sort of agree and say, look, we're not having sex anyway, so let's just take it off the table and focus on other kinds of intimacy. And I would like break it down to when you were kids again, or when you first started your relationship. Ultimately, that's probably like hand holding, kissing, hugging for a really long time, staring into each other's eyes. I would break down intimacy and start small. And I would always say, just start small and work your way up. If you're really struggling, then talk to a sex and relationship therapist or a sex coach or a relationship coach, or read blogs, listen to podcasts on how to work with your relationships. But start small, talk about it a lot. You know, if you're struggling with intimacy, then you need to be able to talk about the intimacy that you're missing or wanting. Really get into that authentic feeling and try and understand, what is it that you're missing? What did the rough patch make me feel? Is that going to happen again? Do I have any worries about that happening again, and therefore I'm feeling a little bit more shut off? There are so many ways that I could think about doing it, but I would say break it down, look for consent for the things that you do want to do, and start from there and see if you can build it up and add things in slowly until you may want to add in sex or whatever it is that is the scary thing.
We've got two questions coming in. One is, any comments on attachment style issues in sex and relationships? The other one I'll ask you later on.
Okay. So I'm not like, I'm trained in attachment, in that is just therapy 101. But I don't often like work with it. I might mention it, but yeah, I think attachment matters. Let's say you are insecurely attached, which means maybe you're a little bit more anxious when your partner's away, or you're feeling a little bit more needy for attention, probably because your parents didn't give you that. It's always bloody parents who fuck us up. Sorry. And your partner might be more avoidant, which means they tend to push you away, or they keep you at arm's length. So they're avoiding sort of intimacy, probably because their parents didn't give them enough either, or they gave them too much, so they just reacted in a way accordingly. So if you are both in a push and pull, then you're going to clash, of course. So I would really learn about your attachment, and what that is about learning about your childhood or your early experiences that affected your attachment, to why you push, why you pull, why you completely run away. Because if you can learn about yourself, then you can bring that to the table and say, this is what we're working with, and here's how I take accountability of myself and how I relate to others. And then the other person hopefully do the same. And then you come together and figure out, okay, these are our triggers. How do we learn how to self-soothe separately and together, so that we're not constantly getting in cycles of pushing and pulling? That's just one example. Again, I would recommend therapy if it doesn't work.
Yeah, the second one is, how can one address mismatched libidos in a healthy and understanding way?
Yeah. So I'm just going to tell you, everyone has a mismatched libido, pretty much. Like, obviously I'm biased, so I see it all the time, but can you really tell me that for 100% of your relationship or sexual relationship, 100% of the time, you've always been at the same level sexually? Like, how can that be the case? Because we have so much going against us in terms of our libidos. And if people don't know what libido is, it's our desire and want for sex. Arousal is how our body feels turned on and tingling when we really, really want it. So I would say, first of all, we're really normal if there's a discrepancy in libido. I wouldn't say that that would be the problem. I think it's probably what it creates would be the problem in your relationship. Often there's lacking communication around what you need and want. Maybe there's shame around your low or high libido. So do you have to work on that individually? Is someone pushing too much, or is someone completely avoiding and not talking about it and making your other partner feel alone? Or I've heard that people feel like sex pests if they have a high libido and really wanting sex, but their partner doesn't, and it doesn't make you a sex pest, it just makes you different. So how can you meet in the middle? How can you learn to understand each other better? And then how can you connect And so if you don't always want to have sex, can you connect in other ways? Because again, sex is on the top of the hierarchy of things that you should be doing in a relationship. But that's just really silly, because there are asexual people who don't want to have sex and connect beautifully. So I would look at all the other things, the other kind of buffet of intimacy and connection that you can do if you don't want to have sex, or at least one of you. And the other person needs to learn that intimacy in all other ways is beautiful too. And yes, if you want to get it on, you want to get it on, and that's really okay. And I need to validate that. But if it's not going to happen all the time, you have to figure out, okay, well, is this okay for me because I can find alternative ways, or masturbate, or do I need to get out? And that's kind of the reality sometimes of the discrepancy, is that my partner wants too much and so I need to get out. It's quite a sad thing to think about, but reality.
We do have time for, there's one more question. We may have time for another one.
Okay.
What strategies help in overcoming sexual anxiety or performance concerns?
What was the last question? The last word? Performance?
Concerns. What strategies help in overcoming sexual anxiety or performance concerns?
Performance concerns. Okay, when I think of performance anxiety, I think of someone either not being able to get hard, not being able to get wet, or not being able to orgasm, or orgasming too quickly. Like, that's what I think about performance anxiety, but that's where my sex brain goes. Performance anxiety or sexual anxiety comes from anxiety. So it might be that you're a naturally anxious person in the first place. And so I would say, are you seeking help for that? And do you have tools and interventions to really help ground yourself in that kind of anxiety? Are you more prone to have a negative voice? Are you ADHD? Because that also is going to keep your mind racing in these moments where self-critic will come in. People hate when I recommend this, but I would really recommend starting mindfulness. So it's not, meditation. You don't have to be sitting down, crossing your arms and doing this and humming. It's just about taking mindful moments in your day. It could be that you use an app, Headspace, to be mindful. It could be use YouTube for it, or you could just notice your 5 senses when you're going about your day. If you're brushing your teeth, what are your 5 senses for the next 2 minutes? Can you turn your mobile phone off? Can you turn the TV and the radio off? Whoever listens to radios nowadays makes me sound old. It's about being mindful in the moment and present. So if you can practice the muscle of being mindful when you don't need it, so practice it all the time if you can. When you do need it, such as an anxious moment, you can be like, oh, I have that muscle. Now I'm going to be mindful rather than listen to the critical voice, or feeling anxious because I'm not going to perform enough, which is probably not something that your partner said. And if they did say that, then I would have a conversation with that and question some things. But if it's all up here, which means it's still real, can you quieten your mind? And then can you also quieten your body? If you're feeling anxious in your head, you're feeling anxious in your body. So can you go back to those self-soothing techniques and treat yourself kindly and feel calm and tell yourself, do you know what? It's not in a performance. If I'm performing sex, then that maybe is not the sex that I want to be having. I want to be connecting and sharing sex and having an intimate moment with someone, rather than putting on a circus act. Like, I don't know if people would really want to have sex with someone who's performing anyway, because then it's not very authentic. So I just really question that. It's such a big question though. So again, if you're struggling, don't want to keep recommending sex therapy. There are other ways around this. There are really great books as well. But I would treat yourself kindly and have conversations with the person you're having sex with to say, hey, this is what I struggle with, and I really want to normalize this, and maybe we don't need to always have penetrative sex, for example, to get by. Let's focus on something else.
Yep, that is it for now. And well, that's all the questions we have for now. I'm gonna put up your, sorry, this is very a very humble way of, I'm really not artist, like I really don't know how to design things, so just
That's okay.
yeah. Your presentation was much better than mine, so anyway. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight for this queering and soothing webinar. Personally, insightful to listen to you, Bima, and hear that all of these thoughts, emotions, and feelings, including internalized phobias, are absolutely
Yeah.
perfect. Um, like really a heartfelt thank you to you for sharing your expertise, your compassion, and insights. Thank you to all of the participants. Wonderful questions. Thank you for being so vulnerable and engaging in this and creating this safe and supportive space. As we bring this webinar to a close, just let's carry forward the practical tools and strategies we've discussed tonight. Remember, we're not alone. We can self-soothe. We can seek therapy, and support is always within reach. So please reach out to us. Um, but before we conclude, we encourage you to actually do reach out to us with any remaining questions. If you have any, please give us any feedback. It's incredibly important to us. So if you could take a moment to share your thoughts, I would be really grateful. If you want to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Eventbrite to stay informed about our future events and sign up to our mailing list. Just don't punish Bima for my lack of design skills. Please follow them on Instagram and their website here as well. And also, last thing I'm going to mention: if you're interested in our mentorship scheme for queer youth, whether as a mentor or mentee, do reach out for more information. Have a great evening and take care. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bima. Do you have any last words or?
Yeah, just curious. Thanks to the people with the questions. And if you were shy or couldn't think of any questions right now, like you can always find me on Instagram and my email. I mean, don't abuse it, but if you had any questions, I'm really more than happy just to take some time and just answer them for you. So yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for being queer and for being yourselves. And I really hope that this has helped even just a little bit, even just a tiny bit, and that you being yourselves and embracing that is something that you can reach one day.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.